All right, can you all hear me okay? All right. Now, our marketing person put pictures on here, but she didn't know that we were going to follow Titus and his beautiful AI people, so now we have realistic-looking people. So, I guess I went one too far. It's all right, we'll start here. So who is Autris? Autris is our company, and before I get into this, I just want to kind of say, you might be wondering, why is this presentation a keynote speech here at the conference? And I think it's important to say, the second line there, stock symbol Autris, A-U-T-R. We're a publicly traded company in the US. The last year that I was here doing this same presentation, or the same conference, our stock was trading at, well, we've gone up about 450, 500% this year. And not to brag about that, but what that means is we're openly, publicly presenting the concepts of freedom that you all care about. And when I first started selling our clients, like, hey, we're going to go public, they're like, oh, come on, we're privacy-oriented, don't do that. It's like a musician letting their songs being used in a commercial or something like that. It's just wrong. And I take the opposite stances. I have to talk to institutional investors. I have to talk to a lot of people on Wall Street and everywhere around the world about what we do. And that's creating Veritas villages, the freedom-oriented communities. And it's bringing what we like and what we all want and the freedom ideas to the mainstream. So I think it's a good thing, and I hope you all will as well. But my son and I started this company. I was a software guy, and we developed a few software businesses in Canada. I'm originally Canadian, living in Panama now in Central America. But my son and I, when I sold the company, the software companies, then we went and lived on a sailboat and sailed around and learned a lot about self-reliance, independence. You don't get to have a long extension cord out to your boat in the middle of the ocean, so you produce your own power. You desalinate your own water for potable water, catch your own fish, and eat sea asparagus and whatever else you can find. So the whole idea was to be fully independent. I'm very anti-authoritarian governments and heavy taxes. Canada is the poster child for that kind of stuff right now, competes well with the UK on that. And so we came up with this philosophy called it the FIRST philosophy, F-I-R-S-T, and really it's about freedom, independence, resilience, sustainability, and transparency. And I can go into all the details of all that, and we will with questions and answers if you'd like, but I just want to make sure we leave enough time for Alex to get to the really meat of the stuff. But if that resonates with you, you can get an idea for what our Veritas villages are all about. Why did we create them? Mostly because we were sick of the political divisiveness. I mean, in the US, it's just brutal. If you're Republican, you don't want to have family members that are Democrats, and the other way around. And I consider myself libertarian, kind of right down the middle. I want logic for policies. I don't care which side you're on, right or left. But it's impossible to have a Thanksgiving dinner with family anymore because of this political divisiveness, and it's crazy. And like I said, I'm not crazy about authoritarian governments and the overregulation, and because I'm Canadian, I always use Canada as an example, but locking down people's bank accounts and all sorts of things, it's getting ridiculous. You're paying probably 65 or 70% of your income ultimately in taxes. It's unsustainable. And the same things that Titus was talking about, how the money is getting used is ridiculous. There's censorship and cancel culture, just like Titus talked about. What you put on the internet 12 years ago might get you in jail today. It's just a ridiculous world. And I'm not a fan of fiat-based systems. The money printing is ridiculous. Canada and US is no different. They're just, every time they want to get out of trouble, out of debt, they're going to print money. And we've seen bank collapses and all those things. So it's basically you're under their control, and we wanted to create communities where you're not. And I'm going to let Alex talk about the next part, but I just want to say the reason we are doing it in Latin America to start with, and I have a presentation tomorrow at 4 p.m. that goes into the detail about the communities. But I hope you can join for that. The reason we chose Latin America, because it's a very live and let live society. So all the things that were happening in Canada during COVID, for instance, where pastors were getting arrested for having congregations, and it was just getting ridiculous. The Latin American culture would never let that happen. So we decided there's a lot of reasons for doing this in Latin America. Climate was a lot better than Canada too. But that's really why we started there. And on top of that, we're very Bitcoin centric. All our communities, we accept Bitcoin you can buy your lot and your home site and their home with Bitcoin. All the communities, any businesses within the community, they can use whatever currencies they want, but one of them has to be Bitcoin. We mine Bitcoin. As far as I know, we're the only Latin American group that's mining Bitcoin with excess solar energy because we're completely off-grid systems. And so we created a Bitcoin treasury as part of our company. We keep a certain percentage of our assets in Bitcoin. And so when we started talking with Alex and Titus about BitCorp, it just made sense to get together. So I'll let you take it from there.
Very good. Thank you very much, Patrick. As you all know, I am Alex Voss with Tipolis. As Patrick's mentioned, we've been working together now for the past month or so. The idea of BitCorp actually came together with a familiar face to all of you, my colleague Titus Gebel, business partner in pretty much everything. We were really thinking about this idea of Bitcoin treasury companies and what is all of the hullabaloo about them? Why are they blowing up so fast? Why are they going down so fast? What is it about these entities? This really got my finance wheels, which is my sort of focus and profession, turning. And so I took a look into this and I thought, I think there is a lot of made up about this sort of industry, but there is some truth to it. People that are taking their fiat that they earn and they're turning it into Bitcoin and holding it there are going to be protected from devaluations over the future. We started BitCorp with the concept of making an investment into a public company in order to execute some of the strategies that we've noticed in the industry. And we started looking through and decided, look, it's very difficult actually to find a company that makes a lot of sense to make that investment into. And started looking around. I said, hey, my good friend Patrick has a public company. It's in the U.S. It's in a regime and in an environment that we understand quite well. Let's talk to Patrick. We sat down and decided that it made sense for both parties and have really quickly executed on it. You all know, I think, that I've written the book, Strategies for Liberty, Free Cities, and Bitcoin. That really is the way I see the future of liberty going. I do think free cities, which from the Tipolis side we're doing from a sort of legal perspective, and then from an Ultra side, they're actually on the ground creating real communities that do create a lot of freedom for a lot of people. Layer in the Bitcoin as Patrick talked about, and I think this is really a great strategy for us. So why would you want Bitcoin on the balance sheet? Many of you, this is going to be sort of remedial, but I would like to sort of explain the thought process in our mind. Bitcoin really is scarce, liquid, and it's increasingly monetizing. Yes, it's volatile. It goes up and down on daily basis, but over time, we're very confident in the performance of Bitcoin over, say, a 10-year time horizon. We really do view it as a long-term hedge against inflation. It's a hedged bet, in the sense that Autras is a real estate developer. We like to have hard assets. We want both, Bitcoin. We also want real estate over the long term. We think that's the best way to hedge against an uncertain future, particularly one where politicians have control over things that that create and destroy value in your life. And then finally, it really does complement the strategy, the first strategy that Patrick outlined. Freedom and resilience, independence, all of these sorts of things. Bitcoin really is that. The ability, as Titus talked about, to transfer your own money where you'd like. We see a lot of value in that in terms of Bitcoin. Why now? Well, I think it would have been great 10 years ago. That's obviously true. But now is the next best time. Obviously, Bitcoin could go down or it could go up from here. Either way, we think we're well positioned. If it goes down, from an Autras perspective, we're not worried about what the earnings look like in the next quarter or the next 2 quarters. We're interested in what happens over the long term. That means we can accumulate more Bitcoin and we're actually better off. If Bitcoin skyrockets and we're out of this 4-year cycle, well, we better get started right now and accumulate as much as we can. Bitcoin treasury companies are really focused around this concept of MNAV. This is the term called market net asset value. This is referring to the value of Bitcoin as it trades in the market versus the value of the shares of a company relative to how much Bitcoin they have. We think there are some reasons that a company might trade at a mNAV over 1, so that would mean you're effectively paying more to own 1 Bitcoin through the company than you could just buy in the market. That's really more of a finance type of thing. You're sort of projecting into the future earnings and what the additional accumulation on a per share basis might look like. But frankly, some of these mNAV premiums don't make a ton of sense. We think that for that reason, the mNAV can actually be quite volatile. It could go below 1, as we've seen with some of the bigger sort of pure play companies. And for that reason, we don't want to be a pure play company. We want to be an operating company that has a real business, generates real cash flows, and plows those into Bitcoin over time. There can be financial structurings and things to be done, but primarily our focus is we want to have a real business that's generating free cash flow that we buy Bitcoin with. It is true, we're of the view that native Bitcoin is absolutely the sort of best saving strategy for a lot of people. But if you look at Bitcoin as the hurdle rate or the investment rate that you'd like to achieve, we do think it is possible for a well-executed Bitcoin treasury company to actually outperform this over the long time horizon. And that is our view. We have this sort of infinity over 21 million mindset where I don't know exactly what's going to happen next week, next month, next year, but I would be willing to bet a lot of money and a lot of Bitcoin that in 10 years, Bitcoin's going to be up and we're going to be better off the more we were able to stack. Just to focus quickly on some of the things that Patrick already mentioned, Autras really is a leader in this holistic Bitcoin company perspective. Even before we started entertaining these discussions with BitCorp, they were already holding Bitcoin on the balance sheet. They were already mining Bitcoin through solar energy in their homes, which, by the way, are on the individual home basis. So you're actually, if you buy a home, you can then mine that Bitcoin yourself. They accept Bitcoin for properties, and they, of course, also encourage it and in some ways mandate that the participants within the local economy actually accept and engage with this. There may even be some future things that we're looking to do with Bitcoin as well.
One thing to mention there, Alex, too, is that one of the reasons we started mining Bitcoin with the solar systems in the homes is our goal is to make it basically zero cost to live in a Veritas village. Once you bought your home, I mean, the water is on site, there's community orchards and gardens and stables and everything for food and all the things that you need. If we got to close the gate because there's COVID 2.0, then we can do that and have a perfectly acceptable life with all the amenities inside the communities. But the nice thing about that, too, is, the HOA fees and potentially your property tax can be paid by mining your own Bitcoin with the excess solar system power that you have for your home. So.
Absolutely. So there are additional risks for this. As I said earlier, native Bitcoin, in my view, is the best saving strategy. We think we can outperform it, but it is, of course, with some level of risk. So how do you manage that risk? I think the key way you're managing this risk is actually having an operating business that is creating cash flows. Those cash flows need to cover your overhead to the extent you have any leverage. They certainly need to be able to cover any interest payments and actually probably well above that as well for the long term. You have to simply be willing to accept that Bitcoin is volatile. It could go up, it could go down. Short-term accounting losses, frankly, are irrelevant in our perspective. Yes, the market reads into them. We're not in this business to achieve outsized returns next month. We're in this to do it over the 10 years. We think getting the timing right is impossible. I don't think this is new to most people that understand Bitcoin. You simply buy all the time. Michael Saylor's famously said, I've bought every top and I'll continue to buy every top for the rest of time. We sort of view it the same way. Maybe you accumulate a little bit faster when it goes down, but you're always going to be buying the top in an asset that is programmed effectively to appreciate over time. Our bet is if you believe in the value of Bitcoin over a 5, 10, and frankly more like a multi-decade time horizon, it just really comes down to making sure you stay solvent, you can always cover your costs, and simply accumulate as much as you can. We're somewhat risk averse in that we think the saving solvent is so crucial that we want to be ultra conservative in that regard. With the acquisition, I think this has already come out in our press releases, so just to sort of focus on what we've already put out publicly, and so you know what our next short-term strategy looks like. There's 3 major functions that we are looking to do over the course of the next, call it 12 months or so. One is Autras is currently trading on the OTC ID, the over-the-counter pink slip stock market in the US. It's a great public market that has helped Autras so far. It nonetheless still has challenges for us. And we think there's a lot more liquidity, a lot more institutional following that can happen if you uplist to an exchange such as the NASDAQ or even this new Texas exchange, these sorts of things. So we're looking to do that pretty aggressively in the next months. The second thing, the Bitcoin Treasury execution. We do want to effectively just buy a bunch of Bitcoin in the short term. We think that's the way to build the balance sheet to make the company anti-fragile over the coming year and years. And finally, we are also looking to use the investment to expand Autras's organic business as they're continuing to expand throughout Latin America. They've shown the model works. They've done it time and time again, and they have lots of expansion ideas, including the ones that you can see here. Costa Rica, that property has already been purchased and publicly announced. There's also plenty of future expansion options. Obviously with President Milei in Argentina, that presents an increasingly attractive environment. Mexico is an attractive environment, for many North Americans. And there's plenty of opportunities beyond that. A global expansion very well could be in the works over time, including partnerships with many of the other projects that you'll see here, the free city developers, the prosperity zones, however, special administrative regions, any of these sorts of projects that you might hear about over the next couple of days. In summary, really we think that the way that BitCorp can create a lot of value for Autras, and as you already heard from Patrick, there has been a strong performance over the last year, and we think there's continued upside, of course, in the efforts that we're putting in now. We think there is quite a bit of a benefit from uplisting onto a different exchange where there's a lot more liquidity and following. We think, of course, BTC is going to continue to appreciate, and we actually think that Bitcoin Treasury companies can slightly outperform this. So this is really the way we're looking to create value with Autras over the next 12 months and even longer. So if any of this sounds interesting to you, we'd very much love to talk about your interest in being involved, your interest in exploring what they've developed, and get your feedback as well on the new BitCorp and Autras Bitcoin Treasury strategy.
I guess we have a little bit of time left over, so if people have questions, happy to answer them. I think one of the key things that Alex mentioned was that we're risk adverse. Autras has been building these Veritas villages, communities, basically debt free. I've funded most of it from the beginning, and now it's profitable. Or like I mentioned earlier, our profits have gone up about 300% this year. The assets have gone up about that as well, 3 times. So we're growing the company. It's such a popular idea, and that's why I wanted to mention, it's not a sellout to go public. It's actually teaching people out in the world, in the mainstream, about what we all love, the freedom and self-sustainability and all that sort of thing. And it's really, I didn't want to go public. I mean, I'm happy to have a private company. I don't like doing quarterly reports and things like that and answering to all the public questions. But I do believe it's important that our message as a group gets out, and it's really helped to do that, because I don't pull any punches. I just, people ask me about what I think about, politics in certain areas, or the brain drain from countries like the UK, or millionaires leaving. And it's like, I'll be perfectly honest about it. I think it's ridiculous what they're doing. So, yeah, we're creating little citadels of places where you can go and live a normal life. And it's amazing how many people that don't even think the way we all think suddenly start to think like that, and you can just see the moment that the little spark goes on in their minds, like, I didn't even realize there was places like that. So there's a lot of you that are creating communities. We're all in this together. There's no, there's competition, but it's a friendly competition of let's all get ahead. And our little part is doing what we are doing right now in Latin America, bringing in, acquiring BitCorp to strengthen and bolster our Bitcoin Treasury philosophy, and just continue to grow and talk about what we're doing, and it's resonating with a lot more people every day. It's a bit bright up here, so if I can't see you, I apologize.
Congratulations. We need more people like you, because you are going to be pushing this movement forward. I am originally from Latin America, and I am a personal friend of Javier Milei. I go a lot to Buenos Aires, and I'm trying to convince him to do a free city for immortality, which is my area, longevity, immortality. So what have you been doing, or what are your plans on Argentina? Maybe Alex, because you mentioned explicitly, well, you too. Argentina.
Yeah. Well, obviously with the libertarian president, we're very keen. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Milei as well. Glad to see that in this last midterm election, he kind of blew away the competition, and everybody was expecting the opposite, or a lot of people were expecting the opposite. So that was kind of really good to see that it's kind of, cemented his position and, got more people in Congress and things so he can actually make more decisions. So, yeah, I mean, there's more ways, but there's at least two ways to attack this situation of creating communities. You can come from the top and request all the governance in the world. And as you probably know, in Latin America, the governments are pretty reluctant to give away sovereignty in any little region because it just doesn't feel right to them, even if it means a lot of investment. So we decided, and I've been working in Latin America for a couple decades, so having struggled with that, to come at the governments and say, hey, we just want a little piece of land that we can do what we want to do. And they're like, yeah, well, good luck with that. And so, we've come at it from the bottom, and what I found is once you prove things, like we are growing our Veritas Village Coronado in Panama very quickly right now. We're basically sold out, and we're looking to expand it. And 3 years ago, I went to the government and asked for more autonomy and the governance and everything. It was just like a no-go. And now they're coming to me and saying, hey, you're bringing all these expats with a lot of investment. They're creating businesses. They're creating jobs. You did what you said you were going to do. What would help you to expand that community and others? So we have a second one in Chiriquí as a province of Panama, and we're continuing to expand. We just got the property in Costa Rica and Nicaragua. So we've got a bunch of different ones going on. But you get to that kind of critical point where the government says, hey, this is actually working. He's doing what he said he was going to do. And then we have a lot more ability to bring in guys like Titus and Alex and Andreas and say, help me explain to the government what the governance should be in these communities and why that's a benefit for them as well as us. So, we're pushing that as much as we can. But yes, in Argentina, I'd like to think it's going to be easier because you're already starting with a libertarian president. So, I don't know who has the microphone, but I can only see.
May I? Yeah, there we go.
By the way, if there are questions after this, just pull us aside.
Yeah,
I'm not sure we're going to get to all of them.
Timer says 1 minute, but.
And thank you guys for combining the practical aspect of, Bitcoin treasuries with this project. A lot of people are very ideological about this and don't build practical stuff. Yeah. A couple of slides back, there was mention of large-scale purchasing of Bitcoin. And I just wanted to ask, the liquidity for that, I assume, is fiat. And where does that come from exactly? Is that revenue or is that limited partners?
It is predominantly revenue at present. As previously announced in press releases, part of the acquisition of BitCorp is actually to do a fundraising into Autras to achieve the uplist, to purchase Bitcoin, and also expand the organic business model of Autras. So it is both revenue on an ongoing basis as well as this fundraise.
And on that point, the company so far has purchased very little Bitcoin, but we've sell homes and lots in Bitcoin, and so we're not selling bubble gum and chocolate bars, so the transactions are pretty big, and so we can somebody buys a $700,000 house, and right now that's roughly 7 Bitcoin, right? And they'll give us Bitcoin, so we'll just keep it in Bitcoin. We don't. We have to keep it, obviously, a certain level of, in our case, US dollars. I mean, if we were in El Salvador, we are designing communities in El Salvador, but we haven't got one there yet. Technically, you could pay the contractors and the guy that puts a tile on the floor in Bitcoin, but we can't do that in the other countries yet. So we have to keep some float amount in US dollars to keep paying to build homes. But whenever, we keep a buffer in there, but we try to keep a certain percentage in Bitcoin, and so far it's come from the funds coming in. I think is that
I think we're out of time. Okay, if you have other questions, please do come talk to us. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much.